Watchmen continues. So I've now seen episode 6, which is a flashback episode. It's the sort of thing that, that the Watchmen comic indulged in and was able to do so very smoothly because, any new issue taking on a different timeline, a different POV, or focusing on a different character works because of the breaking points of each issues. Thus is also the case with episodes of a TV show. Didn't work in the movie, but that's a whole other conversation, which by the time this comes out, I will have already had or will be having shortly over on the Council of Geeks channel. But this goes into the history, the origin, the motivations, and the thought processes behind Will, Angela's grandfather, aka Hooded Justice. Now, watching this episode in and of itself, it was really well done. The way that it's shot really leans into the semi-dream nature of the scenario because it's not happening strictly for the benefit of the audience. It's happening for the benefit of Angela because she downed a whole bunch of what's termed nostalgia, which basically means she consumed his memories and is experiencing them, which means that sometimes we see a young Will, sometimes we see her, always doing whatever it was that he did, but sometimes it's her, and it phases in and out, like the camera will move away and move back, and now it's her. And the way the camera will move in and out, and there'll be a door just in the middle of the street that goes into the precinct, and then they'll come back out. It does a really good job giving it that slightly surreal feel, but in a way that doesn't kill the pacing or kill the flow or make you confused about what it is that's going on. It's really brilliantly shot, to be honest, and doing it pretty much all in black and white, that was a cool call. I like that. Also, it made me bust out my old copy of the Watchmen trade paperback and look some stuff up because the stuff on characters like Hooded Justice is very peripheral. It's very hinted at. It's very skirted around the edges in the original work. What I find interesting, and it shows how much thought was put into this. Out of the various original Minutemen characters who you could have done a serious revision on, he's the one that you had the most opening to because he's the only one who doesn't get identified. Because most of the snippets we know about the original Minutemen, the other ones being Captain Metropolis, the Mothman, Silhouette, the original Silk Spectre, Night Owl 1, etc., etc., etc. What we find out about them is in sections out of Hollis Mason's book, Under the Hood, the original Night Owl. And those show up at the end of issues in the original release of Watchmen. And in those, Hollis didn't know who Hooded Justice was. Nobody knew who Hooded Justice was. He was the one who refused to testify before Congress because it would have required him to identify himself, and he didn't do it. He just vanished. What's interesting is that what we learn about Hooded Justice here is actually in contradiction to what you might think was in the Watchmen comic. But again, remember the source. It's Hollis Mason's theories about who he thinks Hooded Justice was that indicate somebody very much not like who we get. But because it's never confirmed, Hollis doesn't know for sure, there's still room for that reinterpretation. And there's probably been a crap ton of Easter eggs I've missed. I only realized this because I've been editing the friggin' Watchmen video for the main channel. That nostalgia is a callback because in the original, nostalgia is a perfume. And here they bring it back as like a drug. But it's an interesting callback. There's a lot of stuff like that. But like, okay, let's really zero in on this here. The idea and the motivation behind not only a black man, but a black cop, the kind of person who, in theory, should be able to make the law serve people like him, to work the system from the inside. It's not working, and it's not working so badly that he will put on a hood and he will beat the crap or even kill people that he can't do anything about. And here's the thing. Here's what's really fascinating to me. 9 times out of 10, the cop who's also a vigilante actually sits really badly with me. Like, I don't like the fact they made Nightwing a cop, because that means that during the day, he's doing the exact same job that he's doing at night, which causes 2 problems. The first is, it makes him one-dimensional. Basically means he has nothing going on in his life other than fighting crime in some way or another. And the other thing is, it basically just means, well, you're not succeeding as a cop if you have to keep doing this. So why are you even still doing it? It becomes self-defeating in a way, or at least indicates that stuff isn't working. But for a character like Will, I get why, even though he is theoretically in a position of power, that he is in a position of authority, that he is in a position to do something about the problems that he sees, that he can't, and he feels like he has no other choice. I buy it. I absolutely get why he would be a cop during the day, but because the world he lives in and the people he has to work with and the corruption and the things that he can't touch, but he knows are wrong because he sees it every damn day, that yeah, he would put on a hood and wreck shop. It completely sells a concept that normally I don't swallow. It's just phenomenally done. And the depth that we get into it and the understanding of what it did to his marriage, the fact that it wrecked his family, and, you know, seeing the things that he took away from it, we find out how it was that this man, over 100 years old, managed to string up a police chief, and he basically hypnotized him into doing it himself. Now, if I wanted to be in a crueler mood, I could call BS on that, because anyone who knows anything about hypnosis at all will tell you that to whatever extent it works, you can't hypnotize somebody to death. Self-preservation instinct kicks in. That is not a thing. That having been said, comic book world, things work at a slightly exaggerated level. I probably would have accepted it on the comic book page. I'll accept it here. But the other reason I'll accept it is because it doesn't come out of nowhere. It was something that he saw being used against people like him. And he turns it around to use it against the people who were going to do it to him and people that looked like him. He turned their weapons against them. And we get a little more insight into the chief and the Kuluxklan thing that he has, because we didn't know where that came from. Now, he says it's his grandfather's and it's his right to keep it, which, again, might be his rationale, might be what he tells himself, might be how he sleeps at night. But you keep it because in some way you're proud of it, because he didn't hide it. You did, secret panel, yeah, I get that, but if you were keeping it because it was a part of history that you were ashamed of, you would have stuck it in a trunk. You would have buried it in the back of that closet in a lockbox. But you put it on a mannequin in a place of honor because some part of you was still proud of that. And I'm not necessarily going to say that he deserved to die for that, but I understand why Will made the decision to force him to commit suicide. It's one of those things where, like, I don't know if it's deserved, but I understand. I feel like I've gotten a really good handle on this character, and he's fascinating. And it's impressive to do this thorough a rewrite on a character from the original. I say rewrite, but like I said at the start, there's a lot of wiggle room on this character because there was so much unclear. And the few things that directly don't line up are accounted for, like the fact that the few in-color images in the original comic we get of him, we see through the holes, he looks white. Well, they've accounted for that with the makeup. And with things like just the fact that nobody knew who he was gave them the out. And the theories that were presented in Watchmen, that he was a wrestler, that he had some German heritage or this or that. This was just Hollis Mason's pet theory. Just means he was wrong. So it feels like a rewrite, but isn't really. It accounts for the things that it needs to, and it deepens the character. That is dang impressive. This episode is really impressively done. And both conceptually and execution-wise, this is really good. I probably missed some things that I had intended to talk about, but it's just so well pulled together. I'll be really interested to see what Angela does coming out of this scenario, because if she has come to understand him as well as I feel like I have, and I would suspect she now does better, because for her it was like being there, I'm going to be really curious to see what she does and where things go for her in the few remaining episodes of this show. I'm excited to see what comes next. I am nervous because it's coming to an end for me soon. This is an impressive piece of work. It's thoughtful. It is carefully thought out in terms of the impact of what it's doing on the story that it's telling, and extrapolating out and being true to those characters and those events. It fits together really, really well. Oh, the one other thing that I did mean to bring up, the idea of Hooded Justice and Captain Metropolis being together. It's one of the elements of the story I found the least interesting. That's not to say that it isn't interesting, but the way in which he kind of backhands Hooded Justice, and I don't mean like literally, I mean in terms of, sneaking and redirecting him, keeping him off of certain things, encouraging him to continue to hide who he is, etc. I don't know if them being lovers really enhances that all that much. I think that would have played if they were platonic. I guess it boosts it a little, but it didn't feel like it meant as much as At least to my read, it didn't feel like it meant as much as maybe it thought it did. But it's hardly a detriment. When I say it's the least interesting thing going on in this, that's just because all the other stuff is so much more interesting. Watchmen, episode 6. What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Like, share, subscribe. I have the Patreon. That is what pays my bills, keeps this entire operation up and running. Any amount you are able to donate is a help, but even if you can't, the other things I mentioned all assist as well, but don't feel pressure to do any of it. I like to take a relaxed attitude around here, so I'm not going to tell you what to do, but, maybe think about just coming back next time you need a break.